The illusion of choice. Most people move through life under the false impression that they are actively making conscious choices. In reality, they are merely reacting to stimuli, copying external trends, or trailing behind the movements of the crowd. They delay action while waiting for an imaginary, flawless moment to present itself, mislabeling this hesitation as a deliberate decision-making process. The unfiltered truth is that the trajectory of your life is not forged by inherent talent, random luck, or pristine timing. It is dictated by the fundamental quality of your decisions. The splitting of the path. Your future is shaped every single day during small, seemingly inconsequential moments that feel utterly trivial in real time. It is only 5 years down the line that you look back and recognize those exact coordinates were precisely where your life's path fractured and split. Wildly enough, the vast majority of individuals execute these pivotal choices at the lowest possible psychological level, completely oblivious to the fact that higher tiers of cognitive processing even exist. The Machiavellian insight. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his life analyzing human behavior, meticulously observing successful leaders, colossal failures, individuals with every systemic advantage who lost everything, and those with nothing who built lasting empires. His enduring conclusion was that ultimate success never belonged to the person who possessed the most raw information. Instead, victory consistently favored the individual who thought better, highlighting the massive cognitive gap in how people decide when the environment is unclear, the stakes are real, and the outcome is entirely unguaranteed. Introduction to the 6 levels. What truly separates an individual who is actively moving toward an intentional destination from someone stuck in the exact same place year after year is how they process choices. There are 6 distinct levels of thinking that govern human decision-making, and your current placement on this ladder is quietly shaping your wealth, your relationships, and your life's direction. Most people wander through their entire existence without ever realizing this conceptual ladder exists, but understanding it changes how you interact with reality. Level 1, Default Decisions and Autopilot. Level 1 is defined by default decisions, which is the baseline state where the majority of the population resides without even knowing it. At this level, you are not genuinely deciding. You are simply repeating yesterday's habits, last year's routines, and deeply ingrained behaviors because familiarity provides a false sense of security. Your brain purposefully defaults to these patterns to conserve glucose and cognitive energy, but the hidden danger arises when this automated autopilot takes complete control over high-stakes domains like your career, your finances, and your personal relationships. The stagnation of the status quo. Because the world around you is dynamic and constantly shifting, standing completely still on autopilot means you are inherently falling behind. Consider the classic case of an individual who remains anchored to a miserable job for 5 straight years, not out of passion or a calculated strategy, but because executing a career change requires an energetic choice that feels inherently risky. Level 1 feels like active living, but it is merely old, historical choices running on an endless loop, and simply awakening to this pattern is the critical first step toward real personal growth. Level 2. Imitation-based thinking. When an individual finally breaks free from level 1 autopilot and realizes they need a change, their immediate instinct is to look at the successful people around them and mirror their exact actions, marking the transition to level 2 imitation. You see a trending strategy, a lifestyle choice, or a financial move that worked for someone else, and you copy it completely. While this represents a massive step forward, because you are finally paying attention and attempting to learn from your environment, imitation possesses a massive structural flaw because it completely ignores context. The hidden flaw of copying others. Every successful decision thrives inside a hyper-specific ecosystem, shaped by that individual's unique background, resources, market timing, personal relationships, and skill sets. When you blindly copy the final action without possessing the underlying context, you are merely executing a surface-level caricature that is missing the exact mechanics that made it work in the first place. Furthermore, by imitating what is universally popular, you are voluntarily joining the back of a hyper-crowded line, missing the reality that the individuals who truly pull away from the pack always make choices tailored to their specific situation, rather than borrowing someone else's answers. Level 3. Information-heavy thinking. Level 3 marks the shift into more serious analytical territory, where an individual stops copying trends and dives heavily into deep research, data collection, and objective consultation. You read the literature, analyze the data, and enter situations far more prepared, which effectively insulates you from making obvious amateur mistakes. However, Level 3 possesses a rigid cognitive ceiling that traps many thorough thinkers because they fail to realize that an abundance of raw information does not automatically translate into a superior decision. Drowning in analysis paralysis. Past a certain threshold, gathering more data ceases to bring clarity and instead introduces immense analytical noise, where conflicting sources and endless variables lead directly to paralyzing analysis. Information can easily tell you what the current state of reality is, but it can never tell you exactly what bold action you should take next. Frequently, prolonged data gathering is not actual productivity at all. It is a sophisticated, socially acceptable avoidance tactic used to delay the raw discomfort of making a definitive, imperfect call in an uncertain world. Level 4. Trade-off awareness. At Level 4, your thinking becomes genuinely sharp as you completely abandon the childish pursuit of a perfect, consequence-free option. You fully accept the reality of opportunity cost, understanding that every single choice demands a corresponding sacrifice, and the real question shifts to which specific downside you are most willing to tolerate. When you say yes to a high-paying job, you aren't just gaining capital. You are actively trading 40-plus hours of your weekly energy, your time, and your geographic flexibility, permanently closing the door on whatever else those hours could have held. The Machiavellian calculation of trade-offs. Once you embrace the reality that every path contains built-in friction, you stop experiencing regret when things aren't flawless, because you entered the transaction with your eyes wide open. Machiavelli operated at this level constantly, never viewing a political alliance or military move solely as a step toward a goal, but simultaneously calculating what doors were slamming shut because of it. Stop wasting valuable energy searching for a path with zero friction. It does not exist. Instead, deliberately choose the specific type of friction you are willing to manage. Level 5. Probability thinking. Level 5 fundamentally alters your psychological relationship with outcomes by shifting your primary internal question from, "Will this work?" to, "How likely is this to work?" Asking if something will succeed forces a fragile binary mindset that either breeds delusional overconfidence or freezes you in fear, because guarantees do not exist in reality. Assessing the specific odds of success forces you to evaluate your unique skills, current market conditions, and available resources, allowing you to view your choices as a calculated risk-to-reward ratio. The mindset of high-stakes professionals. This probabilistic framework is exactly how elite medical professionals, seasoned institutional investors, and championship coaches operate. They never promise absolute certainty, but instead execute the game plan that yields the highest statistical odds of success. Emotionally, this protects you from being devastated by negative outcomes, because you understand that sometimes smart bets lose due to basic mathematical variance. Refusing to take action simply because success is not 100% guaranteed is often the highest risk choice of all, whereas compounding high-probability choices over time is what builds long-term success. Level 6. Second-order thinking. Level 6 represents the pinnacle of strategic decision-making, where an individual aggressively looks past the immediate result of a choice and continuously asks, "And then what?" You meticulously trace the entire chain of cascading consequences, multiple steps into the future, causing many choices that look highly attractive in the short term to completely fall apart under scrutiny. Conversely, this long-term time horizon makes highly uncomfortable, difficult choices in the present moment make complete, undeniable sense once you see where they lead. Tracing the chain of consequences. Consider an individual who avoids a difficult, transparent conversation with a partner, because first-level thinking says avoiding it keeps the immediate peace. Second-order thinking forces you to look a year down the line, revealing that avoiding the issue causes resentment to fester, distance to grow, and the relationship to slowly erode until it inevitably detonates in a much worse way. Level 6 stretches your choices across time, revealing the harsh truth that what is easy right now frequently leads to long-term pain, while what is deeply uncomfortable right now often builds long-term stability. Time horizons and strategic leverage. Machiavelli observed this exact phenomenon in governance. Leaders who made cheap, popular choices to gain short-term public approval frequently set the stage for their own ultimate destruction, while those who made cold, calculated, difficult choices built empires that stood the test of time. Operating at level 6 grants you a massive competitive edge in business, negotiations, and personal relationships, because you can clearly see when others are taking short-term wins that will cost them catastrophically later. By extending your analytical time horizon 3 or 4 steps past the average person, you navigate reality with an entirely different level of foresight, the compounding of clear thinking. Ultimately, people are rarely held back by bad luck. They are paralyzed because they do not trust their own cognitive processes, causing them to stall, copy others, and treat normal uncertainty like a permanent stop sign. Better thinking does not magically hand you a crystal ball of certainty, but it arms you with a structured mechanism to move through a chaotic world with deep intentionality and direction. The pattern of decisions you consistently tolerate is the exact life you will ultimately end up with, so you must choose to elevate the level at which you decide.